Welcome everyone to our Ignite Startup Workshop. My name is Amanda Golden and I am the Assistant Director of the Herb Kelleher Entrepreneurship Center, where we promote the development of entrepreneurial skills and encourage the exploration of the ways these skills can be applied to careers as founders or innovators within established firms. Our Ignite Startup Workshops provide an opportunity for students, faculty, staff, and community members to learn more about different topics related to new venture creation. These workshops host leaders from various industries and on-campus experts and enable our attendees to gain usable skills and insights for launching an idea and into a startup or pursuing other career opportunities. Today, we're excited to welcome Amanda Eakin and Maryna Burushkina to provide an overview of marketing strategies for startups. Amanda is the Senior Associate at Sputnik ATX. In 2017, Amanda launched Sputnik ATX with GPs Oksana Malasheva and Joe Merrill. As the Senior Associate at Sputnik ATX, she sources prospective startups for investment, helps Sputnik portfolio companies grow, and facilitates investor relationships. Prior to Sputnik, Amanda worked on set of nationally distributed commercials, produced podcasts about science and entrepreneurship, and earned her degree in chemistry at the University of Texas at Austin. Maryna is the founder and CEO of Growth Channel, as well as a digital marketing consultant and trainer. She has helped hundreds of multinational companies, Fortune 100, and startups reshape their marketing to drive accelerated growth over the last decade. Maryna is also co-founder of a successful fintech marketing agency, 7 Markets Group, and now she is leading Growth Channel, a MarTech platform for marketers and agencies to plan, launch, and optimize their omni-channel programmatic ad campaigns. Welcome both Amanda and Maryna. We're excited to have you. And I will mute myself and turn off my video, and you are welcome to take it away. For our attendees, there will be time for questions at the end. Please drop those in your chat box, and we'll get to some of those at the end of the workshop.
Thanks, Amanda, for a quick introduction. I guess we'll kick in. I don't know, Amanda, do you want to say anything before I dive into it, or you want to say maybe a few words?
Yeah, I think Amanda, thank you for the intro. So for a little bit more information for those of you who are watching, Maryna is Growth Channel is one of the companies that we invested in. So we always like to have Maryna come in and share her knowledge about marketing with our startups, and we're excited to share with you. Also, I think we'd love to see what you guys are working on. If you want to drop in the chat what your startup idea is or what startup you're currently working on, and we can talk more about that in the Q&A too.
Awesome. Thanks for that introduction. So hi everyone. Today we'll talk a lot about growth marketing, whatever your startup idea is. If you're just have an idea or if you're already working on something, I think there are today going to be some tips to really move this forward. I think there's a lot of the perception in the market along entrepreneurs when they're like, hey, I'm going to build this and then everyone is going to buy it. But oftentimes that perception is slightly wrong, because you definitely want to figure out who exactly is the market and who's going to be buying it, what's the problem and solution that you're solving before building. So there are those two paths. And I think today we're going to be more inclined into the second version of that. But why should you care about growth marketing in the first place, right? Like, why do I need to do any marketing for my startup? So there are 2 very big reasons to that. Of course, there are many other ones, but number 1 reason is there's a growing competition. There are new tools, applications, and businesses expanding and opening up every single day. And on the second side, we have growing user expectations. So you definitely see that maybe a few years ago, you wouldn't have expected having a full driving car and sitting in that seat of Tesla versus like nowadays is pretty much a common thing, or anything of that sort. So users are expecting much more as they discover new innovative products these days. So those are at least two reasons why you should care about marketing overall. And growth marketing per se, you may ask, well, how is it different from traditional marketing or digital marketing? There are a few reasons why growth marketing is really important to consider for any startup growth. And what identifies growth marketing is basically this nice visualization developed by Growth Tribe. And basically, it's a combination of a few components. On one side, you have data and testing. So on an ongoing basis, you are deploying different experiments. On the other side, you have creative components. So when creative marketing comes alongside, that could be also implemented alongside your branding, logos, colors, some creative campaigns. Then you have tooling and automation, which really helps you usually scale the business. And then you also have behavioral psychology, which is really trying to understand the behavior of your users, of the customers, and how they think or perceive different products or messaging. So a combination of all of this would really form the growth marketing methodology in this case. And I think Amanda wants to also say a few words about some of the great resources, which all of you definitely recommended to really take a look at.
Yeah, so just a note as we go through this, I'm going to talk on these black slides, and there are going to be some, we'll share this presentation with you guys later. There'll be some links in there with resources and some books that we recommend and that we have all of our startups read. This first one, as Maryna is talking about growth marketing and how it's different from digital marketing, I want to kind of zoom out and note that when you're starting your company, it's generally a good idea to go narrow and deep. And there are a couple of reasons for that. One is when you don't have the power to reach a big audience, sometimes it's a good idea to choose a very interested one. And that might look like going out to talk to customers like one by one, doing things that don't scale. And the other reason is, as your product is still being defined, those early conversations that you're having with your customers really kind of shape how you develop your product in the first place. And we'll talk about how to co-create your product with your customers a little bit later on when we get into personas and how to ask your customers questions. But the idea is during this presentation with Maryna, we're going to talk mostly about digital marketing, but I don't want you to forget that a lot of things when you're starting out are narrow, deep, not like big blast out to large audiences, but kind of on the ground, getting your hands dirty. And you might decide that any one of these traction channels is the one for you. We're mostly going to be talking about digital marketing today.
Yeah, I think this is really a good thing to keep in mind. I remember like 2.5 years ago when I was still developing the prototype for a growth channel. So what I did is I ran a survey and I shared it in a number of marketing groups and also with all of my marketing network to fill in and share some insights with me. And then I had a few follow-up interviews with them to just like dive deeper into specific topics and like what their challenges are, why they have this challenge, and like how are they currently solving those challenges, what tools are they already used to solve it, and what's still the missing piece, like what's the gap that still persists that needs to be filled basically with some sort of a solution. And I remember the prototype was actually that I put together was like a type form on a no-code website. And I shared it with all the participants in that survey, all the people I spoke with, and I also shared it in a few community groups. I shared it in startup communities and in the marketing communities. And I got great feedback in like thread replies, but then also got some early customers to actually pay for that. So that was super cool experience. So that's basically like an example of no scale, and like put something out there, do the research, and kind of take it from there to the next level. Cool. So let's a little bit talk about what's the difference between growth marketing and digital marketing overall. Digital marketing focuses a lot before a user converts to become a customer. So awareness about your brand, about your product, acquisition, which is more like driving people to your website, for example, and then actually signing up. So all of that is digital marketing scope, but the growth marketing continues also after that. So it goes into how are they using your product or service? What's their experience like? Are they going to be, telling about their experience to their network, which is more about referrals, right? And then continuously driving that revenue with maybe you have an ongoing recurrent subscription model, or upsell, or cross-sell opportunities, etc. So that ongoing monetization of the users on your platform or whatever you're selling. So that's the main difference. Growth marketing takes into consideration the full journey of a user from the very beginning, before they even know you exist, until they're basically on with you on a platform, or even after they left your platform for whatever reason. And digital marketing from before they know you exist until they actually sign up. So that's the main difference to keep in mind. And at Growth Channel, we developed a 6-step approach that we focus on internally, which is basically a framework and methodology, which is baked inside our own platform. And those different stages include trigger, which is basically before a user even knows they have a problem to solve, which is usually when you really want to have those deep conversations and interviews to identify the problem and kind of make it recognizable by even the user that they have the problem. Awareness is usually they know they have a problem that they need to solve, but they are not yet actively looking for a solution. Consideration is when they're already comparing different alternatives. Should I use Trello or should I use Jira, for example? Conversion is when they're actually ready to sign up or buy. Delight is that retention component while they're using your platform, and advocate is really about them helping you co-promote, refer new customers, tell the world about their experience. So those are the 6 stages that you should really consider for your own marketing. And there are different channels, different content opportunities that can be part of each of those different stages in the customer journey. So it could be everything from PR, which is usually at the very top of your funnel, down to, let's say, webinars, which is more educational, which is when they already know they have a problem to fill, and things like, having opportunities for them to download certain materials when they already share their personal information with you, and you know that they're interested, or if they're requesting a demo, etc. So there are many different components, and this channel list is definitely not exhaustive. Traction is a great book to read, so read the Traction book. Another one I think that's also in our cohort is Digital Marketing for Dummies, if you want to dive deeper into the customer journey. And there are lots of different resources online as well to give you some ideas, but this is basically an example of how you can map different channels along that journey.
So this is a note on as you're going about writing for your podcast, social media, even when you get into like talking within forums, white papers, etc. This is good news for a lot of you. I think the MLA style academic writing has no place in your marketing copy. So you don't have to worry about 1-inch spacing from the top and side and all of that stuff that you kind of learned in school, as well as a lot of like the academic style paper writing is, it depends on the startup, but you probably won't use it in your marketing copy. A common pitfall that we see a lot is founders who went to great schools and learned how to write scientific papers and got A's in their English lit classes go and try to apply that style of writing to their marketing, and it doesn't connect with the customers. You really have to rethink how you go about communicating. A lot of marketing looks more like fifth grade level words, fewer words overall, a lot more simple. The way that we say it at Sputnik is not Dilberty. And I want to note a few places that you can learn to do this or find writers who do this on campus. So writers and podcasts, the Daily Texan, Spark Magazine, and I put a few classes there where they really teach you how to write in ways that speak to customers rather than your English teacher or to a journal.
Yeah, that's a great tip. Here is another tip for you guys, which works every single time, and it's just amazing. So while you're speaking with the customer, right, we already said we need to speak with the customer multiple times. Write down the notes of what exactly the customer said about the problem they experience, and like the challenges, etc. The exact words or like what their objectives are. And then when you like follow up with them or for your landing page copy targeting that, customer profile, use those exact words. Like just those exact words. Don't paraphrase it. Don't change it in your own kind of internal language. Just use exact same words that they can then relate. Oh, hey, this is exactly what I need for the solution. So that works every single time. And it's perfect. And it's so simple. So just do that. So that's going to be like a quick kind of quick thing before you master the communication for the startup world. This is a quick summary of the customer journey steps that I already went through. So everything is available also about the customer decision journey. And if you want to dive deeper and kind of try to map your own journey, we have a free template you can download on our website and try to, work through it for your own idea or the startup phase. So we talked about speaking to customers. So I think one of the things that is always tough for startups is really to identify and narrow down that customer persona. Well, I call persona basically your ideal customer profile. Is, hey, who will be my ideal customer? Who's going to be the user on the platform? I don't know exactly what you guys are working on these days or what ideas you have. But for example, if you're developing a platform, it could be also that you're developing a platform for, let's say, for the government or for academics, for universities, maybe, or something like this. In that case, you may be speaking with, principals or deans, etc. If you're developing a platform for maybe other fellow developers, let's say, there are so many cool tools popping up here and there, targeting actual software developers, engineers, etc. these days as well. So in that case, you should be talking to them, etc. So really try to narrow it down. And so we build a framework that will help you better understand those challenges and goals of your ideal customer profile. And we put them in different buckets and present it all in a, let's say, a single framework, a single page that will give you a really clear idea of, hey, this is really who I'm targeting. A few very simple, a little cheesy, but very helpful tips is give your customer profile a name, because then you can differentiate between different customer profiles. So for example, for us at Growth Channel, we have Paul as a startup founder and Rachel as a marketing manager, just to give you an idea. Each of them have a picture, because then you can associate that, hey, I'm talking with this customer profile, and you have an association in your mind that, hey, I'm speaking to this type of profile versus the other that you may also be targeting. Identify some of the demographics, of course, this is always helpful. like in terms of the gender, age, maybe titles or departments they're in. Those are helpful, I'm saying, but they're not the key. The key is really to identify what their goals are. What are they trying to achieve in the ultimate way? For example, you may have seen now everywhere, ClickUp has raised way too much money. And now they have so many billboards everywhere, right? So they're like, hey, save, so many hours every day. So it's really about saving time. There's like, okay, save, I think a day every week, they say, or something like this. So in this case, it's really about saving time. So the goal is, okay, I need to save time in my day. I need to have more time for other things versus just, managing the project. The challenges, what are the pain points that people experience? Well, it takes me forever just to fill in spreadsheets and do reporting, maybe a few other things, right? On your day, they're just very routine and manual work, which, like for maybe ClickUp is able to solve, for example, right? In this case, I don't know what exactly you guys are working on, but really try to identify those challenges and objectives, because this is exactly the copy you can also use with your communication to your customers on your website, with your email copy, in your press releases, social media posts, etc. Another important component is the influence. So who and what is influencing their decision? For example, if you are targeting, I don't know, let's say you're targeting project managers at, I don't know, at a specific industry level company. And so who is going to be giving the budget approval for the project managers in this case? So you definitely want to identify, hey, who's going to be making the decision, or who is going to be influencing the decision of those project managers, for example? Is it going to be the head of the department? Is it going to be maybe some of the team members who are also going to be using the platform, etc. It could also be that certain events or publications oftentimes also influence the decision. In the regulated industries, it's mainly the regulatory requirements. For example, at Gross-Chan, we work a lot with healthcare and financial service companies, and their regulation matters a lot. So then we need to sign lots of paperwork, have all the privacy regulations, etc. in place, and documentation that you're able to provide them to help them really move forward in decision making. The decision criteria here at the very bottom, first one is also important component. This is actually how you're going to be moving forward in your sales process as well. The decision criteria can be something like, hey, I have this much budget allocated for this type of solution. This is the easiest example, but there could be other important decisions to be made. For example, we are a global team and we are distributed across multiple countries. Or for example, hey, we're purchasing this solution for multiple teams and it needs to be so many people collaborating, or there needs to be different access level, etc. So those are components that you want to identify what is important for people to make that decision. And KPIs is basically how are they going to be measuring success with your solution? So whatever you provide, you're developing with your product or service, what is it that will make people love your product and appreciate it and maybe buy it again? Is it, for example, you save one day every week, like with ClickUp, or is it, for example, increasing the revenue for the business? Or is it, having some kind of shiny object to show off to their friends on Instagram? Like, what is it? And then you have likes and dislikes, which will always help you to move further in a journey, but they usually are kind of nice to have as well. So it's something that you want to avoid and something that you want to present more of while having that communication with your customers.
Awesome. So on that note about getting to know more about your customers, this is the book that we probably recommend the most, called The Mom Test. And it's about how to ask questions to customers or would-be customers in ways that aren't leading, because generally if you ask someone, do you like my product or would you pay for this? People are kind of inclined, like your mom, to please and just be nice. And you don't want that. You don't want fluff or flattery. You want like the real answers, and to understand what their lives are like and what their needs are. So highly recommend this book. Very thin and practical one on what are good questions to ask, what are bad questions to ask, and how to have those conversations. And all of that goes into your personas. The general principles are to talk about their life instead of your idea. It's not a sales pitch. Ask about specific things in the past instead of generics or opinions in the future. And then talk less and listen more, which is also a good kind of thing to practice for sales anyway.
Yeah, this book I think it only took like a few hours to read. So, and you can literally just write down the questions in maybe like make a checklist. And then every time you speak with a customer, you can always ask those questions or with the prospect. I don't know what you guys are working on again, if you want to put those things in chat so we can make a bit more specific use cases. But I did lots of mom tests in different communities in our early days. And that way I was able to reach a wider audience and get more responses, but also talking with the existing network really helps as well. So just like trying to identify the connections that maybe you're directly connected with already, people who may be a potential customer, or maybe you have connections, like second level connections, basically, for example, in LinkedIn, you can ask for introductions from your network to get introduced to some of the prospects and just speak with them, ask for feedback. And usually what I see is that also whenever we were asking to speak with someone about our product, we would not get a response. Versus when you're asking, hey, I would love to learn more about this and this in your job or in your life. Would you happen to have like 10, 15 minutes to share some feedback with me? People are usually more inclined to actually give you an answer to those things. And I basically went through the different components of building that customer profile. Again, there is a checklist here of everything I just talked about, and you can also download the template on our website and just try to apply this template to your own, product or service that you're trying to build, as also you're completing the mom test and interviews and surveys with your potential customers, trying to fill in that component, which will basically drive your communication strategy for various channels. As we talk about personas, so there are different ways how you can approach it. Let's say after you already have done certain interviews or surveys, definitely surveys and interviews is a must-have in the very early days. But as you move forward in your business, you will have most probably like CRM, which is customer relationship management platform. So let's say if you already have, let's say 100 customers or 100 prospects you are speaking with or trying to speak with, it's most probably a good time to get a CRM platform, right? And there are many free tools out there, or you can even use things like Airtable or even a spreadsheet in the beginning, to try to note down the different components and then look for basically trends and group those, different customer profiles. Because, for example, especially if you're selling in B2B, like business to business world, if you're selling to companies, essentially speaking, there may be different decision makers, different team members that will be involved in the process. And it's a good idea to kind of tag them. Hey, this is going to be our influencer versus this is the actual decision maker. This is the budget approver. This is the legal team. And then have them under, let's say, an account, right? So those are kind of things that will help you. CRM will help you really organize all of those things. If you're working directly to, consumers, if it's a B2C company, in that case, most probably, more simple version like, MailChimp even in the beginning could work, essentially speaking, but still, I think it would be a good idea as you scale to get some kind of a CRM platform or CDP, which is customer data platform, to really help you personalize the experience of those consumers once they visit your website, for example. So I think we are getting some things in chat. I don't know if those are relevant or not. We'll check those in a bit, but For example, if you are developing a mobile app, there are slightly different tools also that can help you to really identify who's using the platform, who's using your application. So I listed a few names here. So like Google Analytics, I think every website should have it, honestly speaking, unless you're working with some very regulated industries and they don't want to have Google Analytics. In that case, I think like Adobe Analytics or Amplitude will usually be okay. Mixpanel is another good alternative. And I know that Sputnik also has lots of promotion around Mixpanel, which is a great platform overall. Segment is a customer data platform. So basically helps you identify those different people who visit your site at different times of the, day or the mobile app or even both, and then identify those patterns and build those journeys. So as you scale, you may want to consider some of these tools to put in your stack and really have more data analytics around the people engaging with your website or your platform. I'm going to skip some of the rest because I think maybe that's too advanced for you guys. But I will definitely provide the slides so you can consider different ways of how you can build your personas. You can use data intelligence at scale to really build those persona profiles and customer profiles. But in the early days, definitely focus on simple things like surveys and interviews, and make sure that you also have structured interview questions and open questions, not yes, no answer questions in your interviews. I think that's a very important one, just to mention. And as you do your marketing, so you may want to start with maybe like 3 channels at a time. For example, let's say you assume that Facebook and email and I don't know, let's say Reddit may be good channels for you. So you may want to test those 3 different channels and see where you'll be driving the most, let's say website traffic to your website or whatever is your objective, mobile app downloads, or maybe registrations or even purchases. But definitely ensure that you have analytics in place to track how each of the channels is actually performing. So then you can compare the results and see, for example, if nothing is coming through Facebook, for example, if your objective is to increase sales, it's time to consider a different channel to replace that strategy. And maybe you should try, I don't know, TikTok, for example, or something like this. But I would not suggest to test more than 3 channels at a time. So I would say 3 at a time is most probably a good point to start, but definitely make sure you have the tracking and analytics in place so you can actually quantify the performance of each of those channels, and then you can pause different campaigns or switch your resources to a different channel. So testing, optimizing, learning, and repeating the process.
And I was going to jump in and say that if this looks familiar, you learned it a long time ago. It's the scientific method. So marketing is a lot about a lot of the same processes that you probably already know. You're making a hypothesis and running an experiment. I think when people really think about it that way, they don't get caught up in what they think that their audience is or what they think that their product should look like exactly. And when you treat it like an experiment that serves the customer, you're a lot better off. And then the other thing on that note is that science students can make great marketers. So don't be afraid to look outside of your college or even the business college when you're building your team. Interesting people come from all colleges and walks of life. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say there.
Yeah, and around experimentation, it's not only about the channels, but it's also about your messaging, about the content that you push out there. So I think right now on our homepage, we actually have like 5 above the fold text experiments running. I don't remember all of them by heart, but I think one of them is like programmatic done right, or programmatic as done right. We have reached the right audience and a few other ones. So you put a goal to really, okay, what's our objective? For example, in our case, we have new signups. And you can use tools like Google Optimize, which is free, up to like 16 experiments, which is more than enough for you at the moment. So you can actually consider experimenting with different content and different communication messaging on like your website, for example, with Google Optimize. You can consider different messaging with like little Facebook ads if you want to at certain point, to really see what message resonates the most with your audience. And then, also learning from that. And this would usually be good when you have like the scale, right? But in the beginning, just for you to even know what content to put out there, talking to customers is like step one to do. And I know we're running out of time. There are a few recommendations here in terms of like what to consider for your, let's say, website, different components to include to really trigger people to get interested in what you're building. One here I have is social proof. So as you speak with customers, get people to try things. Maybe in the beginning, you even give something for free to customers to try. Make sure they share feedback. And this happens all the time. So like in your early days, maybe giving like something small for free, just making sure that, you get that feedback in place. And if it's positive feedback, definitely like make sure that you visualize that on your website with either logos or case studies or a short testimonial. Those are great ways to showcase this. In the early days, you may not have many big customer names. However, oftentimes, especially if you're building some sort of a tech platform or anything around technology, you may have partners for integration, for like certification, anything like this that you can also then showcase on your website. And when people say, hey, I know this company, so they're legit. So even though you're a startup and you may not have very big customer names, if you integrate with some of the, let's say, more known brands or companies, that may already trigger people, hey, I know this company. So then, I can trust this startup in that case. Lead magnets. Sometimes I get a question, hey, what's the lead magnet? So lead magnet is basically you offer something for free, like a template, an ebook, a white paper, checklist, something like this infographic that people will be willing to share at least their email to get certain information downloaded for free or get access to it. So those are lead magnets. It works perfect for us. And I think it's a great way to really capture leads in a B2B space. In B2C space, it may be something different, like a sample, for example. But in B2B world, definitely like having that webinar access or, template or a checklist usually works great to build your leads list. And making sure you give clear value and quantify the value. So when you speak with customers, ask them, hey, what's your goal? And like, how far, were you able to get, along by implementing our platform or our strategy, our services, etc. Quantifying that value really helps, in making sure that new prospects are can relate to the experience that the other people had. To give you an example, we did a case study a few months ago with one of our customers on the new product that we launched. And we sent him like a form to fill. So he filled in all the sentences without giving any number whatsoever. And we were like, okay, this is great, but what's the actual value? What's the actual value? So what we did was just like come back to him, hey, can we have 5-minute chat with you just very quickly? And we're like, oh, so how many, you're like, you saved lots of time. So how much time did you save? Or like, hey, and this was much cheaper. How much cheaper was this? So ask questions if you don't get that type of information from your customers. And visual preview. So I think it could be applied also in B2B space if you have, let's say, screenshots of your mobile app or the platform. But for B2C, it's even more important because this is where you can really showcase, like what people are buying in terms of like goods, for example, if you're building something along the side of CPG. And CPG consumer product goods. So sometimes, the terminology, just in case you don't know it. But I think that's it in terms of like quick tips from my side. You can also reach out if you have any questions or you want to have a follow-up chat. There are also some free resources for inspiration that we put together. So I have free marketing templates, which 2 of them I shared during today's session. Growth Tribe Academy, they have lots of free resources, and they also developed the growth hacking methodology, which I shared in the beginning. If you're curious about getting some ideas for creative marketing specifically or branding, marketingexamples.com is like just the best collection of those different case studies from small and big brands. And then we also have a compilation of growth marketing tactics, which is about like 230 something free tactics resources that you can access to give you some ideas for growing your startup. So yeah, that's just a wrap from my end. I don't know if you guys have questions.
We do have time for a few questions if you want to drop some questions in the chat. I'll kick it off and see if that maybe starts some more questions. What would you say are the biggest mistakes you've seen some earlier startups make in terms of marketing, and how can our founders attending today maybe avoid some of those?
Yeah. Is it me or Amanda?
Either one of you.
I can start. I'm sure Maryna has some stuff to add too. So one thing that I've noticed is people will do some early testing on the traction channels, and when you get into the book, it's basically like you start with the 19 traction channels, you brainstorm which ones that might work the best, and then you do a lot of testing on like 3, and then come up with one that you're going to focus on. And I've seen recently sometimes people will find that their traction channel they want to focus on is Facebook advertising, and it works really well in the beginning. But then when they try to add more money into the tank, the cost per click goes through the roof. And maybe Maryna has thoughts on why that might be. But then they have to go back and figure out what another traction channel might be. Maryna, what would your advice be for a startup that had that experience?
Yeah, for Facebook ads, well, first of all, Facebook is not the right channel for everyone. I think that's where you should start. So first figure out if your audience is even on Facebook. And step number 2 is do a little test on Facebook before putting a big budget in place. And third, why sometimes the costs go very high on Facebook. There are usually 2 reasons to that. One is you have a remarketing campaign and Facebook doesn't put a cap on the frequency of the delivery of the ads for remarketing. Remarketing means you have existing customers or website visitors who you are putting the ads towards, which is usually the best strategy for conversion, by the way. Is just the way Facebook is structured to make the most money with little audience. So they don't cap certain things which go just very expensive. And second time when Facebook becomes really expensive is usually when there are more people, advertisers, running ads at the same time on the same location, targeting the same type of audience. And this happens, by the way, on any channel. Not just Facebook. So if you even do, let's say, programmatic advertising on our platform, it's exactly the same story, especially the prices go up during the holiday period, because this is when everyone is advertising. And the more advertisers, the higher their budgets, the higher they're bidding for, reaching certain audience, and they're basically competing with each other. So this is the time when the costs also go up. And actually the third component on Facebook specifically, which is not only on Facebook, but on a few other channels too, is usually when you run your first set of campaigns, they have lower costs, but then when you reach certain thresholds, you get kind of to the next level. So the costs are going up. So it's just something to consider, and definitely keep on experimenting. So don't stick and run the same campaign for more than 1 month in the same way. So other things that work on Facebook or any other channel, you can see that if you're advertising with the same message and visual, a banner or a video, whatever you have there, image, people get tired of seeing the same image over and over again. So you definitely want to refresh that at least every 2 weeks. And it doesn't need to be like completely different thing. If you're using free, let's say Canva, which is the simplest way you can do, and it's free, and it will take you like a few minutes to make something. You can just, swap a screenshot or a picture, swap the, the background color, and slightly update the copy, because you keep on talking to customers, right? You keep on getting new insights from them. So slightly updating the copy. You can also test different landing pages. Maybe, the landing page you're driving traffic to, and maybe, you have slow page load or something like this. Maybe something on your development site that, you made some changes on the website or whatnot. So definitely keep on testing things. Don't stay with the same campaign for a long time, more than a month. So that would be my recommendation. I do have a few other tips for that usually are very relevant for startups in the early stage of marketing. So definitely don't develop something and then speak with customers, trying to figure out what problem it solves and how you're going to communicate it. That's the biggest problem that I see usually when speaking with startup founders. So they have a product already, but they haven't really spoken with customers. They just have something in their head. Oh, yes, I'm solving this problem. Yeah, it happens all the time. Yeah, it's a big problem. But they haven't actually spoken with people who are going to be potentially buying it, right? So definitely, if you want to build a business, meaning get some money for whatever you're building, talk to people who could potentially at some point give the money for whatever you're building. So I would say that's my number one recommendation in this case. But I also see some interesting actually things that people are working on, and I would say it applies for everyone. I think the one that I have personally lots of experience is from, I don't know how to pronounce the first name, so V Gupta. So you said you're working on news and economic calendar to help traders with their analysis. So I don't know if you know the platform A to Z Markets. So I was actually co-building that platform back in the days. So the problem we were solving, for example, is just to have transparency for traders. So that was kind of an add-on, but there are so many tools that and sites and apps that I personally know provide news and economic calendar, right? All that stuff. So definitely try to figure out, hey, what's the value add for people to use my platform or my site versus some other app, versus investing.com, for example, right? Which is one of the biggest ones. So why would they come to my website versus some other place? Make sure that is very clear for people when you try to communicate. So that's just an example.
That's great. There's a common question here in the chat about how do you know when it's time to start marketing? At what point, what metrics should you have? Where should you be with your idea to know it's time to kind of start testing the marketing?
I think this is where we talked a little bit about in the beginning about going narrow and deep and doing things that don't scale. I would say start now. And because you don't want to create something and then go and try to sell it and discover that you've made something that nobody wants. So the idea is to start narrow and deep with people that would be like your first customers. That might, let's see, I think that was from Patricia, and you're doing hydroponic farms. Let me read this so I can maybe tailor this to you. So, Patricia, I think you'd want to be talking to people that would be um, buying your fruits and veggies and greens and doing the mom test on them early on, and tailoring your marketing copy and like how you formulate your business model around what matters to them, what makes you stick out. Maryna, do you have anything else to add on that?
Yeah, I would do the mom test first before doing any marketing. With the mom test, you should ideally figure out exactly what needs to be made, first of all, right? And during the mom test, usually I asked also the questions like, hey, which social platforms are you using on your, daily, weekly basis? Or like what blogs are you reading? Which newsletters are you subscribed to that you're actually reading, or like stuff like this, right? So that you can also identify, or which events are you going to? In my B2B world, that's important. So try to identify those channels as well that you may want to consider for your marketing during your mom test as well. So it's not just about your product. And I think there's another question around like flavors, right? Yeah, ask customers like which flavors they want. And ask as many customers as possible about the flavors. And once, usually I talk about statistical significance. I hope you guys know what that means. So for example, you definitely want to have enough responses, in easy terms, right? Enough responses to justify, let's say you've got, I don't know, let's say you only have 10 responses, and then you have the highest vote is 2 votes. Well, that's most probably not enough, right? So try to have at least 100 responses in that case, so that you have certain percentage that you can say, hey, yes, this is the flavor that we should go for, and we should proceed with. But usually, like get people interested in something, and then sell it. So make sure that you have people who are ready to buy, and then finish your development process after that. I actually know there is this cool startup. I don't actually remember their name, but they are from France, and I just was following their journey. What they did was, I think, is remarkable. So they posted a screenshot of apparently Figma in a Facebook group and said, hey, we have this platform that does this, and this. Most probably they spoke with customers, and like, who wants access? And then, they had hundreds of comments within 24 hours saying everyone who wants to try the platform. It was basically a financial platform that helps you like forecast and stuff like this. And once they had like a buy-in, so people who were actually paid for the subscription in the future to have access to it, they actually developed the platform, and then they didn't even launch it publicly properly, but they sold it to, I don't know, someone bought it. That was a funny story, but that was just like an example of like early stage development / marketing. Communities in the beginning also worked really well for us. It's something I would recommend for B2B. LinkedIn works great for B2B too, from personal experience. It might not work for everyone, but just like some of the most commonly it would work. And for B2C, some of the channels that work for some of our B2C customers are Instagram and TikTok. So I don't know, you guys may want to check that out. I have seen email work for any industry. And also SMS messaging works really well for B2C. If you have like D2C, like direct to consumer products that you're selling, that can also work well. But definitely test, like those are some of the standards, but it doesn't mean that it works for everyone. So testing is important.
Well, thank you both. This has been very helpful. I'm sure our attendees learned a lot. I know I learned a lot. Thank you to all of our attendees for joining us. I put in chat, we have 2 more Ignite Startup workshops coming up this semester. Next week, we'll be hearing more about customer relationships, and then the following week, we'll hear more about proving early traction. And our speaker series, Entrepreneurship Live with Brian Kruger, founder of Alert Media, will be happening on November 15th. And the links to learn more and RSVP are in the chat. Thank you all so much for joining us, and I hope everyone has a great rest of their day.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.